God redeems everything. He takes ashes and makes them beautiful. And I feel like that's been the testimony of our marriage.
It was like a light bulb went on. Like nobody told me that my marriage could look different with the same spouse. Like I was like, if this is the way my marriage is now, this is how it's going to be forever. And it was this sudden new marriage, same spouse.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Radiant Podcast. And today we are joined by dear friends of mine, Ryan and Betty Kondo. Thank you so much for being here, guys. We've known each other for a long time. So we did ministry together in Kansas City. We do ministry together here in Kalamazoo. Trying to think of the year that I think I first met you. We went to Taiwan together, actually. That was like when I first met you, I feel like. And did like 10 days in Taiwan, did worship ministry together there.
Sang in Mandarin?
Yeah, sing in Mandarin.
I think you could still sing in Mandarin?
I do. I know a couple phrases still. Woman-ini.
Ni hao.
Ni hao. Woman-ini. Woman-ini means we love you. It was to a song, we love you, Lord. And it was the only one I knew.
Woman-ini.
Woman-ini.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
What's to you?
Woman-ini Chu, I think?
Chu.
That can't be right. But anyway.
Sorry, any Mandarin.
It was the only phrase I knew. And so I would just say it randomly to people. I'd be like, oh, woman-ini. And it's like a very like
I just have a distinct memory of Ben.
Yeah, Ben Wood.
We were driving in the van and
he,
there's a biker.
He throws open the side door and goes, woman-ini! Like this yells it at them.
At this bicyclist.
So I think did you have dreads at that time?
No, there were.
Was that pre-dreads?
That's pre-dread.
A pre-dread. Wow.
Oh, yeah, it was.
You knew me pre-dreads.
Yeah. Pre-dreads. And then you had like nice, when I knew you were a worship team together, you had some nice long dreads. And so,
yes. Yeah.
So we've known each other for a while and, we've had time together, time apart. You guys were in Kansas City together. We were in Kansas City together, and then you guys were in New Zealand. You were in St. Louis, and then you were here in Kalamazoo, and then, New Zealand, then Kalamazoo, then St. Louis. Now back here in Kalamazoo. So it's been
we're never leaving.
Never leaving. Yeah,
ever. Y'all are stuck with us.
Threw away all the suitcases. Yeah.
Yep.
And so
burn the boxes.
Yeah. So we've had time together, time apart, and what I wanted to talk about today was just your guys' story. I mean, we could talk more about even just your personal stories, like I know you guys have just your own time with the Lord and history and story with the Lord and through salvation and things like that. You guys are. I know that you're one of my favorite worship leaders. And I actually have a whole other episode that I want to talk to you just about, and I've already texted you about it, just about pastoring and leading worship and congregation. You're one of the most humble, pastoral, fatherly figures on a stage. I mean, it's like, I just,
Thanks.
Love leading worship with you. And Betty, you are this like creative powerhouse, ballet dancer, and you've done it all over the world. Yeah. And so, done it here and in other places. And so, we could talk all about that, but we're not.
So much to talk about.
Yeah. What I want to talk about is your guys' marriage. And so, which has gone through, gone to hell and back, basically.
Yes, it has.
And back to hell. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
We're not there now.
Hell back, hell again, back
We're
again.
Doing great.
Okay.
And so want to talk about that. Yeah. So I don't know where to start. Yeah. I know some of your story because I think when I first met you, it was probably
you joined my team in the midst of all that.
We were separated.
Yeah. You guys were separated. Then. Yeah. So
2011. 2011.
I
think. Yeah.
And so it was an interesting time to meet you.
Yeah,
when I joined,
I was a wreck.
Yeah, and then I was still, on teams with you. I think when you were starting to get back together, and so there's a lot that I just don't know.
Yep.
Right.
But I've seen the restoration and healing, and want to just talk through it. So where should we start?
We can start where we met.
Oh, that's a fun part. Okay, let's start there.
Let's start good.
Yeah. Well, I'd say. I mean, you could fill in the gaps. You're way more detailed than I am.
Okay.
But mean, both of us, it's like the typical, like, especially a Christian, you know, like we both, for the most part, grew up in a Christian home, had some morality. Both of us were waiting for marriage. So like you would think like, oh, this is going to go great. We got married. We actually met in Orlando. I was finishing up university at UCF, and Betty was dancing with Orlando Ballet at the time, working at Starbucks part-time.
I forgot that. I remember this.
And I was her, she was my barista.
Yeah.
And so,
I remember this name.
no mutual friends. We just met at Starbucks and invited her to church. So if you're single and you're trying to meet your wife, highly encourage you to go to a coffee shop, find a single girl, and invite her to church.
Guaranteed. Every time.
Marriage.
10 out of 10.
No, don't listen to that.
How old are you guys at this time?
I'm like, you're like 18.
I was
22.
18.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was finishing up college.
Yeah.
Have
you graduated?
I actually graduated early. I was 16 when I graduated high school, and then I moved to Orlando to dance with Orlando Ballet.
No university for her. She just went right into her career.
Yeah.
So we met. We started, I think we were friends for like 6-7 months. I'd bring you like omelets
I would
work.
open. I'd have to be there at 4:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
So by 7 a.m., I was hungry.
Oh, yeah.
And so Ryan would show up with these massive omelets. The way that my heart is
I
through my
wooed her
stomach.
with, with really good omelets. The trick is to not fully cook it
Yeah.
and close it and let it cook a little bit more.
Yeah.
This
Because
is
some
not
people overcook
Ryan's
it.
cooking
No,
show.
actually, let's talk about that.
I knew that you would jump in on that. You're like, actually, I disagree.
No, the slow cook of the egg is where it's at.
Yeah.
A lot of butter, slow cook. You got to turn the heat off right before. I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
So
I'm actually starving right now.
now you're like, dang it, I want to eat.
Hungry just thinking about it.
So we started dating. We were friends for a while, and then started dating.
Whoa. You came to me one day and you were like, so we're
After we've been friends for what, 6 months?
We were like friends for 6 months and doing boyfriend-girlfriend things and like.
Well, that can be
dating.
construed as weird.
We would go to like the movie theaters or go play games at Chuck E.
Go to the
Cheese
beach.
or go to the beach.
Yeah, dates, but not like other boyfriend-girlfriend
Christian
things.
boyfriend-girlfriend things.
Christian. Let's be clear.
Anyways, so Ryan comes to me one day and he goes, so we're pretty much dating.
Yeah.
And I was like, you did not ask me to be your girlfriend. So he eventually did though.
I did,
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah.
So we started dating. We dated for quite a while.
Yeah.
Asked her parents to marry, or that I could marry her. They said no. We almost eloped.
I remember. Yeah.
We almost eloped. Or we talked about it.
Yeah, we
I think
talked about
you
it.
asked her multiple times, right?
I had to ask 3 times.
Yeah,
Trace.
3 times.
Not once.
I mean,
not
3
twice,
times is
3 times.
that's commitment. I mean,
Well, there were some things that they wanted to see happen, and,
Yeah.
Right.
and some of that happened. Some of it didn't. But
yeah.
I was the only girl. I
Yeah.
had moved away. My mom said, please don't move away and meet some guy and never move back.
then
And,
that happened.
that's exactly what I did.
And then when we did get married, she's like, don't take my daughter far away. I moved to New Zealand.
Like literally the
the
furthest.
farthest point of the globe.
Yeah.
Your poor mom.
My poor mom.
So anyways, so we start dating. We didn't even kiss until our wedding day. Like we,
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
we did all the things right.
that's
We
wild.
were committed. Like we're not going to get divorced. Both of us have divorced parents, and so we're like,
Okay.
we want to break that in our family line.
Mhm.
And so we were really committed to each other. You were dancing with Kansas City Ballet,
Mhm.
kind of a dream job, like
Yeah,
your first
It
big
really was.
big job as a ballerina. I was working at my church, leading worship. In some ways, I felt like things were going great for the first 3 years, but it wasn't going great,
Right.
and I did not know that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a good summary of the first part.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, our wedding day was awesome. It's
It
a
was.
party. It was so much fun. The first 3 years,
We had
both
a
of
great
us,
honeymoon.
great
Yeah.
honeymoon.
So you felt like first 3 years were great.
I
Did you
thought
feel
we
like
were
the first
doing-
3 years were great?
Yeah, I do. I mean, there were a few things that were just as anyone that is learning to live with another human being,
Yeah.
there's learning curves.
Yeah.
Do you put the toilet paper this way or
Yeah.
this? Just silly things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Do you leave the butter on the counter or in the fridge?
That was a big fight,
On the counter. On the counter.
right?
I'm done.
I'm out.
You can leave it on the counter in a Butterbell, which was the compromise.
Oh no, we just leave it on a
nice
tray
and
with a
fresh.
thing on top.
Yeah,
of
that's
it.
what we do now.
The whole world does it.
Almost 17 years later. Our anniversary is June 6th. 17
Wow.
years. We're coming up on 17 years.
Come on.
Anyways, but I felt like for the most part, things were going well. We were enjoying each other.
Yeah.
However, we had a house. You
were the breadwinner.
Full-time
We'll just
job
say
with
it.
benefits. I was the breadwinner.
Yeah.
And then I ended up losing my job.
Okay.
And I was the breadwinner.
That was the first crisis.
That was the first crisis.
So not as a ballerina, you had
Yes.
another job?
Nope.
No.
That
Oh
was-
wow!
yeah.
So you were the breadwinner
were-
as a ballerina,
which
As
isn't a lot of
ballerina,
money.
I didn't know
Which
that.
was not a lot of money.
Oh, okay. So you just weren't making.
Let me be
anything.
clear.
I was making
Ballerinas do
not
not make
much.
a lot of money. But
worship
the
leader.
Kansas City Ballet was, building this brand new performing arts
Yeah,
center
yeah, yeah.
downtown.
Kaufman, yeah.
The Kaufman Performing Arts Center, and the last few dancers that got hired essentially were
Okay.
let go to. Anyways,
Wow.
so it was rough. It was very, very difficult for
First
me.
big crisis.
Yeah, it was first big crisis. And I've been dancing since I was 3. So this is like a whole nother story.
And at this point, you're
23?
Yeah, you're so young.
So, right,
Yeah.
super young. But along with my job, I lost a huge part of my identity.
Yes.
So that's a whole
Yeah.
pillar that just crumbled
Yeah.
in my life.
You didn't just lose a job, like you said. You've been dancing since you were 3.
Right.
You left high school, or
Right.
not? Like you graduated from high school at 16 to
Right.
start dancing. I
Right.
mean, it was like this
Right.
is
This is who I am.
Yeah.
I was
Ballerina.
Betty the ballerina.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then on top of that, like you mentioned, you were the breadwinner. So
I was the breadwinner.
not only did your identity go away, but we lost a lot of income. And my response to that was, I started getting invitations to go to do ministry trips, which at the time I thought was so much money.
Yeah.
Looking back, I'm like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
Go for a week plus and,
Yeah.
be away from my wife. And so that separated us a little bit more. And then,
It drove a wedge. It
and then
started
she was
that
like,
wedge.
Ryan's really not going to be making that much money doing these trips. I have to start. So
Yeah.
you just got another job
Yeah.
and took leadership. And
Yeah.
I just wasn't leading our family well on a lot of levels. I was doing great ministry-wise. I mean, I thought I was doing great ministry-wise. I was leading my team,
Right.
discipling people, all the
Yeah.
good things you want to do in ministry. But I didn't have a grid, honestly, for how to do it at home.
Wow.
And so for us, like the biggest thing for me was I did not take the leadership role in the home, leading our family spiritually, which was just us two at the time.
Right.
But it's a family.
Yeah.
And so that was a massive, massive failure on my part, which I would say, the crisis was big, but I think that was probably the bigger thing that caused what happened next.
Right. And I could say that. I could look at Ryan and say, wow, he's investing in his team. He's leading his team well. He's there for them. He's pastoring them. He's caring for them. And I didn't feel that at home.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a couple years in.
Yep.
Yeah.
You said you got a job. Like it was like, okay, like you'd mentioned, I don't feel like he's leading us well. So I need to.
So I have to.
I have to. So what happens next?
So I started auditioning the following season for ballet companies, and I got a job with a ballet company on the West Coast.
Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, this was like probably my dream job.
Yeah.
I mean,
Touring company.
It was a touring professional ballet company, touring ballet company for about 6 months of the year. I was hired as one of the lead dancers. I was offered that contract.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. We tried to figure out like how was this going to work. And
But even before you moved there was already a riff.
yeah, there was
Yeah.
already a riff,
Yeah.
and the ministry that we were serving at, Ryan was serving at. I mean, truly, Ryan was serving at the time. I mean, I was his partner in ministry as a wife, but that was it. I mean, that's where it stopped. And I couldn't. I actually, because I had not done an internship with this ministry, I couldn't even be like, I couldn't be the person that filled up water bottles.
Yeah,
I couldn't
yeah.
like get people's.
Yeah.
And this was like an unspoken rule at the time, which had changed.
So that increased the wedge, 'cause
Right.
it's like I can't even
Be a
like
part of
be
what
a
you're
part
doing.
of what
There's
you're doing.
no place for me. There
Yeah.
was no seat at the table
Yeah.
for me to do ministry with my husband in full-time ministry. So it was like, wow, we are really living. Because I always felt like in the dance world, that was my ministry. I have always felt called to be a light in the darkness, to be in the marketplace, to take the hands and feet of Jesus to people that otherwise wouldn't come in the door of a church, might not encounter the heart of the Father. So let me be that, you know. So that was kind of, I felt like my calling through my vocation. And so at this point, it was like, okay, well, if I can't even be serving with my husband in ministry and I have this dream job, it was like kind of my ticket out of there.
Yeah.
At this point, he was very called to where he was. And I just kind of felt like this might be my plan of escape.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Did you feel like blind to that? Like, were you like not even?
Oh, I think it was because we agreed like she would go out there.
Yeah.
And, and I would just visit when she wasn't
Yeah.
touring. And I was blind to it in the sense I didn't understand the value of obviously providing.
Yeah.
At that point, I didn't understand the value of leading my family at home. So at that point, I really wasn't doing it. So I was blind to in the sense that I wasn't even knowing that I wasn't doing things that I was supposed to, because, my family life, my mom mostly raised me. I see my dad once every other weekend in summertime. And so I didn't have really and he at the time, he's not a believer either. So we didn't have that backdrop of how to do life. Yeah. So I was completely blind to it. And then when, I think it was the second time I came out there to surprise you. And
yes.
And Eugene, you hit me with the news.
Yeah, this was in 2011. I moved out there. The season started in September.
Okay.
So I want to say it might have been not long after that. I think it was our first show, our first performance. Ryan shows up backstage, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Now oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. I wish you weren't here.
I really don't want to see you right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And
I felt that.
So I remember we went out to this dinner after the show, and I was like, hey, I don't want to be married to you anymore.
Wow. Okay. How long from you moving out there to that point? You said how many months?
That was just a couple months.
Okay.
But it had been like brewing.
Yeah, it'd been brewing for the years.
Yeah.
And then you step, like you said, it's like my ticket out of here. You step out, you probably are feeling the okay, this is now my life.
Right.
And then he's there. Because it's almost like it was like a long distance relationship kind of gone bad.
Yeah.
And then so during those couple months, what are the thoughts running through? Are you even thinking about marriage? Are you thinking, is it just kind of like, has that door, like when you say, hey, yeah, like what?
Ryan's gone.
Like, what are you feeling?
We would talk every now and then. Yep. I was feeling like finally I have some space, like I had created for myself space to breathe and just to allow myself to not feel the confinement, which I really felt confinement, I think at the time.
From our marriage.
From the marriage and feeling like I can breathe, I mean, I'm doing what I absolutely love. It's what makes my heart come alive. I had a lot of favor.
Oh yeah, so much favor.
Yeah, and so I was kind of thinking like, is this something I could continue? Is this how I want to continue living my life?
Yeah.
And I mean, I was still following Jesus. I was still loving Jesus. I mean, I wouldn't say there was any period where I was like, I'm not going to be a Christian anymore, so I can get divorced. It was like it was this daily wrestle and tension of what I knew I believed in my present reality, and how do I balance that?
Yeah.
And so for those first couple months, it was just like okay, I can catch my breath. It felt like almost like a breath of fresh air, and not like thank God finally Ryan's out of my life, but a little bit it did. And I think also just being outside of Kansas City, and I mean, I certainly didn't feel the liberty to take time away from being in marriage to sort things out in Kansas City. That was not an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that happens. You guys go out to eat, and she says, I don't want to be married to you anymore.
Yeah. I mean, there were some things, we had a few conversations before she moved that really just blew, I don't want to say blew up as like she talked about some of this, not even saying getting separated, but I don't want to be married, some of those conversations. But we weren't separated yet.
Yeah.
And so I was already in a raw, I'm trying to save my marriage. Like, what do I need to do? Let's get counseling. What am I doing wrong? So then I fly out there. She says that. And I'm like, this is the opposite of what I've been working towards. I was just devastated. I was, at that point, I wasn't blindsided because I did know that things weren't going well at that point. But I was definitely like, is this separation for restoration, or is this separation for you to just move towards divorce? So you couldn't answer that, I think, at the time. You're like, I don't
really
know.
couldn't.
And so we just were separated, and I went back to Kansas City, and just was a wreck for the next year plus. I didn't go out there again. Did I?
You did. You came for Thanksgiving in Alaska. We were on tour in Alaska.
Oh, yeah. Did I already have that plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I already had booked my flight. That's what it was.
I think somebody might have paid for you to come out.
Yeah, that's what it was.
It was our first holiday apart. They were like,
guess-
oh, here's...
Yeah.
I was like, great, thank you.
Yeah,
It was very awkward.
Yeah.
Because she did not want to be with me at all.
Yeah.
And I was there to see her dance and support her. But yeah, went out there, and I think that was it after that, though. We didn't see each other for another year.
No, it was probably about, 7 months.
Yep. So I would just go and pray at church.
So I mean, you guys are like you're not divorced,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not living
divorced.
together,
We're not living
And we're
together.
not even talking.
and you're not talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, we weren't talking.
Not really.
I would try, and it wasn't.
You did. You did call me when you got bit by a brown recluse.
Oh, yeah. Got bit by a brown recluse on my buttocks.
On the butt.
And
Yeah.
So you call Betty.
Yeah.
What do
he
I
was
do?
like, do we have health insurance?
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, that was pretty much it.
That was bad.
Crickets.
Yeah.
So we weren't talking. I just continued my work. I remember talking to my pastor at the time.
I mean, it's probably the only thing you knew. Like at that point, it's like, I don't know how to fix this, so I'll just do.
Well, yeah, I wanted to quit. Like I wanted
Yeah.
to quit what I was doing, ministry. I wanted to quit a lot of stuff. And my pastor said, no, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep your heart open for God. And honestly, keep singing. Probably some of the best advice I got was to keep singing. Grab a couple Psalms that were really where I was, kind of match the language of what I was feeling in my heart. So Psalm 63 was really close to me. And I just cried out. I sang about the cross a lot. That kind of got me locked into singing about the cross in that season. A lot of chance to be offended at God, but I think singing and keeping my heart before the Lord really helped me not get offended.
Yeah.
I could still yell at him and cuss at him and all those things, but
Yeah.
it was those, I don't know, it was something about, singing to him and being before him that helped me, I think, not go off the deep end, because I had a history, and, we can talk about that, but, and drugs and alcohol and craziness. And so I didn't go back to any of that stuff, which was remarkable.
Yeah.
Not
the
because of
mercy
me,
of the
but I think
Lord.
it's just because I kept myself before God.
Yeah.
And so I was really thankful for that. It was,
Yeah. So that's like over a year-ish. I'll just say year-ish. It's kind of like you guys are separated. It's kind of going down. What was the turning point?
Well, so Ryan, you had been given advice to read a book.
yes.
Just a book?
a Dobson book,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A Marriage and Family Guy.
Yeah.
And it was the opposite advice I wanted.
Right.
It said, and actually, I think someone else had given me this advice. 2 other people gave me this
Right.
advice, and then I read this book. Someone said, you should read this. So I read it, and it said, essentially, ultimatum, but essentially open the door. If your spouse wants out, just say,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, go for it. And Dobson said that. And I think it was called Love Must Be Tough.
And that's risky because she's basically already told you,
I want out.
I want out. So it's like you're kind of giving her that permission, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's tough.
So I didn't want to do it. We
Yeah.
prayed about it. I'll just say this. I'd say that season, so when I say I was singing to the Lord a lot, I was before him, it was probably the most pain I've been in at that point. And I, my parents were divorced, a lot of crisis growing up. But the pain is different because, people say loss of a loved one's painful, and I agree, that's really painful, but the person's still alive and they're out there,
Yeah.
And I think that was you know, it was a loss of a loved one that's still alive and
Yeah.
that's still like living their life without you in another
Yeah.
city. And so for me, it was super painful, but I felt God's presence like I'd never, and we even talked about it after the fact, how the suffering or the pain that I was going through, it was weird. I felt closer to God than ever to this day I've ever felt. Even in the great times where I'm on the mountaintop, the valley, even though at the time there's some days I didn't feel it, but overarching that time was like, man, I fellowshiped with the Lord so much in the suffering.
Yeah.
And, you know, the whole verse of like, God's near the brokenhearted, I felt that.
Yeah.
I felt that reality of that. So that was massive. But that book helped me, you know, kind of like bring things to a point where I said, hey, you've asked for a separation. I'm in this limbo where I'm literally crying out, praying every day, weeping tears, you know, as my intercession and prayer, that we would be restored. And you're just kind of I'm in this limbo.
Yeah.
So what are you wanting? You know, and she said, I don't know. I don't know. So I said, hey, here's the deal. You have an open door, but I just need to know. So I think we just put a time frame on it. I said in the next 2 weeks, I don't remember how long it was, but this date, let me know if you want to.
Just remember it was April.
Let me know if you want to keep working on our marriage. We'll keep working on it. And if not, you're free to go. Right? Is that how it went?
Yeah.
So what'd you say?
So, and we start talking more in that time. So I'm like, she's like, I think the open door actually, because the book actually talks about.
Yeah. It creates.
It actually, some people will come back because of that. And because you're giving them the freedom to do it. And so, and obviously she had the freedom the whole time, but saying it out loud. And so I said that to her and we started talking more. And I'm thinking, this is working. Like we're going to be, she's going to make the decision to let's work on our marriage. Because it's just increasing in conversation. Up until that point, that wasn't happening. Yeah. So I was just so stoked. I was like, this is actually going to work. And then the day comes, and you said,
I'm meeting with a lawyer, and I'm going to divorce you.
Like, nah. Worst case scenario hit my heart.
It's not funny, but it's like
it was brutal.
Yeah, that's brutal.
But
it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, at this point, I felt in despair. I felt completely hopeless. Like through the talking, I think I was trying to even tease out some of like, okay, are you still feeling called to the same thing? Yeah. Do you still feel like you want to be in Kansas City? Are you? Yeah. And I'm thinking this is going to be such a sacrifice for him to say, come back on my terms and we're doing it this way. And I was like, no. Yeah. And I was not getting, I was selective in who I was getting my advice from and input, including somebody, I would say to the point of it being like an emotional relationship with somebody else that had intentions with me, you know, like was making plans down the road and saying, it's okay, you can get divorced. And I mean, I even talked to the director of the ballet company. And she was like, "It's okay. We've all been there. We've all been through divorce. It's no big deal. You'll pick up and move on." It's just your first
marriage.
Yeah, it's just your
and
that's that's
you got
very
married
normal.
young.
Yeah, you got married young.
You didn't know what you were doing.
Okay.
No, yeah.
So
but when that's all you're hearing, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess this is just how it is, and
right. So I just felt deeply hopeless at this point and decided divorce was the best option.
Yeah.
So I filed for divorce.
Yes,
I sent papers. This was in May. I sent papers to Ryan. I guess funny thing kind of happened. We don't have to talk about that. That you didn't actually sign for them, so they were like nulled.
Because I was living above someone's apartment, like in a studio apartment.
Above
their garage in a studio apartment. So I went to the front door and the owner of the house signed for it, but I had to be the one who signed.
Yeah. So I was like, dang it.
Ryan can't do anything right.
I can't do anything right.
Can't even sign papers.
Sign the divorce papers. I'm divorcing this man. No. For no other reason than that. No, just kidding. But it got to, okay, so fast forward.
Yeah. And I'm praying the whole time. So from the time that we're separated, and even before that, I was already praying like crazy, like just in tears over our marriage because I knew that things weren't going right and she wanted out. And so I'm praying, God, one, shut up the wicked counsel that she's getting. You know, Psalm don't sit in the council of the wicked, Psalm 1.
Yeah, someone.
And so I'm like, shut up their mouths. Like, or the other thing I was praying is, God, give Betty a dream. Like, whatever it takes, do whatever it takes. And those are the only prayers I had. And like, you know, a lot of tears too, which I think is prayer. But yeah, so it comes to papers come. I don't sign them properly.
Right.
So I do sign them, but they send them back. Anyways, then what happened next? Or do you want to?
Well, So, and let me also say, at this point, I had to sign my contract for the following season with the ballet company. And Ryan was like, come back, we'll work on our marriage. And I said, screw you, I'm staying here. No, I didn't say that. But I was like, no, this is what I want to do. This next season is like my dream roles with the ballet company.
Yeah.
So
she was a main dancer.
Signed.
Well, I mean, so here's like, as an outside observer, it's like you're literally like, I still go back to what you're talking about your identity.
Yeah.
You actually experience what it was like to have your identity stripped from you.
Right.
And then now you're like, because that part of you has not been healed, you're like, I see, like, this is my identity.
Right.
Everything else can burn. I have to go after this because I felt the pain of my identity being stripped.
Yeah.
And if I say no to this and go here, I'm literally killing that part of me. I'm literally can be like identity suicide. It's like, I'm killing that part of me.
Right.
And it's like, that's for a young person, when that's not developed yet, that's so difficult. Yeah.
Right. So I signed my contract for the following season. And then I had this, the only way I can explain it is just a fear of the Lord encounter. Like it
was
was
one of my other prayers I was praying.
God.
Give her the fear of the Lord.
I have experienced it once and I never want to experience it ever again. But it was like I lost control of my body is the only way I can explain it. And it intensified to the point of me calling Ryan at night and saying, I have to come back to Kansas City.
Wow.
And I was like, yes.
You're
and I'm like,
woo.
literally, I buy the ticket that night. I'm flying and then driving her back from where she was, which is a long drive.
Yeah.
But it was weird
like,
because she had the fear of the Lord moment, but she still didn't want to be with me. So it's just a long, quiet car ride.
No, but you like a
day-long
felt
car
something. Ride. It's like, it's this flag, this light, this alarm, and then it's like, but your heart, that doesn't mean your heart has changed.
Right.
Like there's still so much of the process. Yeah.
Right. So we drive back to Kansas City. I stayed at a friend's house, I think. Yeah. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, what have I done? What have I actually done? And so we're meeting with these people and, kind of talking through stuff. We meet and I mean, so this is the crazy thing is at the time I did not want to have kids. Ryan wanted to be a dad eventually. And I was like, I don't know that I ever want to be a mom.
Which again, is like career suicide. It's like it's this identity thing.
Right. So we talked through things and I just came to the conclusion of the fact that I could not do this. I just could not do this. And I'm sure some of it was selfish, like, well, I want certain things on my terms. Or like, why can't we come to an agreement or a compromise?
And I was like, nah.
No, he was finally leading for like the first time.
No, I did
in
say,
our marriage.
and I had one friend, a pastor friend of mine, say, I remember I was at a wedding, and he's like, how are you doing? And only a few people in our ministry even knew fully what was going on, and he was one of those. He's, how are you doing? And I said, oh, not good. And he said, he said it in a way, and I didn't understand what he said. He said, if she comes back, don't make it easy on her. And I was like, what? You're crazy. I was like, I'm gonna pave a road of gold for her to come back. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so in some ways, with the, I did say there's a few things that I'm not budging on those things, or we're gonna have to talk about that. That's not like you just come back and that's gonna work like that. So she decides I'm leaving. But that night, what happened? The night she goes.
When you say leaving, like you're gonna go.
I was in Kansas City. I'm like, nope, I can't do this. I came back. I tried. I was there for like a week. I was like, I'm leaving.
Coast?
Yeah, I'm going back to the West Coast.
Okay.
And so that night, I had a dream.
Again, I prayed, God answered.
And let me say, God has frequently throughout my life encountered me in dreams.
Yeah.
So that's a way that he speaks to me,
Yeah.
probably because I have to be asleep for him to talk to that, to listen. And I'll just,
You're
just
pretty
being
tuned in with
honest.
the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
But that is
Okay,
that's a big
thank
way.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. But so I'll explain it just because it is pivotal in this story. So I have this dream. In the dream, it was I remember it feeling very dark, and I was thinking, I must be camping. I could see like little glimpses of light. I must be like in a campground. Those are campfires. And then suddenly I knew that this bad person had stolen my wedding ring.
Okay.
And my original wedding ring was green, and I loved it, and it was so precious to me. I didn't want it, like a diamond, just like everyone else. I wanted this beautiful green stone, and so I knew in the bad dream
I also
that this.
couldn't afford a diamond.
Okay.
So I was,
I was the
I was
breadwinner.
happy about
I
that.
probably did pay for my own wedding ring, technically. That's okay.
Guys, don't do what I did. Come talk to us.
Okay, moving on.
Go ahead. So, in the dream.
Person steals your ring.
I knew that this bad person had stolen my wedding ring, and immediately I got up and I went searching for it because I wanted it back again.
Yeah.
And so I remember in the dream, it was this very this sense of urgency and intensity where I had to go searching from pawn shop to pawn shop to pawn shop, searching for my ring because I wanted my wedding ring that this bad person, this evil person had stolen from me. And so I remember feeling completely exasperated walking into this. It was like the last pawn shop that I was willing to go see if my ring was there. And sure enough, that's where it was. And I was so excited. Oh my gosh, I've gone searching for my wedding ring and I finally found it. So I go to the pawn shop owner and I say, I explain the situation. My wedding ring has been stolen. It belongs to me.
Yeah.
And I want it back again. And the pawn shop owner in the dream looked at me and said, if you want it back again, it's going to cost you.
Wow.
There's a cost associated to it. And I was like, no, you don't understand. It belongs to
yeah.
me. It's mine. It was stolen from me. I deserve to have it back. And the pawn shop owner in the dream said, if you want it back, it's going to cost you $100. And I mean, anybody would pay $100, right? But in the dream, it felt like this significant amount, like more than I could fathom paying for this.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, how am I going to get around this, and negotiating with him. And I said, I'm only willing to pay $50. And I remember him saying, well, if you're not willing to pay $100, you're only willing to pay $50, you can't have your wedding ring, but you can have another one. Wow. And I remember him taking me to this other case, and there were really beautiful rings. And I remember looking at them thinking, I could settle for that ring, but in the long run, I would want my wedding ring.
Yeah.
I would want mine.
Wow.
So I'm going to get emotional. So I woke up from that dream. I still was just kind of just feeling hung over from the week and just the confusion and then the dream. And so I got in the car by myself, started driving back west, and it was like this download came to me from about the dream. And I got to where I was going, and I immediately emailed our pastor at the time and just shared the dream. I was like, what does this mean? And I remember he responded promptly and said, your dream is simply profound and profoundly simple. Yeah. And he said, the enemy is trying to steal your marriage, and you have gone searching for it again. And the amounts was that God is asking you for 100-fold obedience, and you're only willing to give 50.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I was just I remember reading that email, just feeling the tenderness of the Lord, it's the kindness of the Lord that leads us to that place of repentance, but also just this is a really hard decision.
Yeah.
And I remember the pastor saying, that the other ring could mean another marriage or something else. And later I felt like the Lord just told me it was my career. It was my career as a ballerina. Was I willing to give God 100-fold obedience?
Wow.
Did you have something to say?
Well, I remember you came over that day and you told me about the dream.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could have told you. You didn't know the pastor. I could have told you what that meant. But that would have been my interpretation, which would have been yeah, right. Yeah. But I remember we even called, you told me you're leaving, and she just drove by. I was like, hey, I'm leaving. I was like, wait, what? You just got back.
You can keep the dog.
And, oh, guapo.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
It was Bella.
I forgot.
No, that was, I think, later. It's Bella.
Oh, it's Bella time.
Oh, I thought
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
a
Remember,
Guapo.
she would
was
chase
later.
her tail on command? It was great.
Get it. So I'm just like, don't go. And I essentially said, she got in the car
This is
and I was like,
important.
if you leave, because she had resent the papers,
Oh.
the divorce papers. They're sitting on my,
Yeah.
in my house. And I said, I'm signing the papers and I'm done.
You said
If
that to
you
her.
drive away from me right now and you go back west, it's finished. I'm not chasing you.
Yeah, you said, I might not be here.
Yeah,
if
I'm
you
not.
come
All
back."
right, no, I didn't say I might not. I said I won't be here.
Wow.
I said I'm done. And you're like, all right, peace. So I'm like,
Wow.
signed him the right way, put him in the mail, and I was like, I'm done. I'm moving on.
Wow.
And in some ways, I felt good, like because I had just been fighting for so long.
Mhm.
I mean, probably 8-9 months at that point, maybe 10 months. But I was just fighting, weeping, crying. It feels like forever, when you're separated. And so at that point, I felt relief for the first time. Like, okay, I've done my part. I tried, even to the point where God was answering my prayers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All the
Specific
things
prayers.
I was specifically praying for, give her the fear of the Lord, give her a dream. Those two things happened and she still left. And ultimately I was like, she has a choice and she
Yeah.
chose those things,
Right.
And so when she left, I just kind of went, all right, she's done. And I just went back to work, still in pain, but still fellowship in the
Yeah.
Lord. And then what happened? Or do you have
So-
any?
No, that's
You got anything?
no.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
I spent probably the next 2 to 3 weeks just like really weeping and calling out to the Lord, crying out, listening to
You're at the West Coast.
in the West Coast. Yeah. Listening to different things. Actually, and I have to say, I have to put this plug in here. So I read and reread chapter 1 of a book called Real Marriage. It's by
Okay.
Mark Driscoll. And the title of the first chapter is Different Marriage, Same Spouse.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it was like a light bulb went on.
Yeah.
Like nobody told me that my marriage could look different
Mhm.
with the same spouse.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was just this, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
Like I was like, if this is the way my marriage is now, this is how it's going to be forever. And it was this sudden new marriage, same spouse.
Mm.
And that's what it was, new marriage, same spouse.
Yeah.
And I just read it and would cry and process with the Lord and journal.
And we're not
And
talking at all at this
we
point.
weren't talking.
Yeah.
So I finally
'Cause I was
called.
done.
I
Yeah.
called Ryan and I was like, "Hey, I'm coming back." And he was like, "Well, that's great, but I'm probably not gonna."
I said don't.
Yeah,
said
he
you-
actually
I-
said, "You signed your contract.
You s-
Stay out there."
I said, don't come back.
Finalize the divorce.
It's career suicide.
Yeah.
I'm not waiting for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not working on our marriage.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't come back to Kansas City.
Man.
Which I have to say, I do feel like it took because then at that point it was a yes to the Lord. It wasn't to Ryan.
Yeah.
So I felt like at some point I would have resented him if I had come back on his terms, but I could never resent the Lord for 100-fold obedience
Yeah.
and actually not having mindless obedience, but participating with what God wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that was the missing piece. I was willing to do it because he told me to, but I was unwilling to engage my heart into what he was asking me.
Wow.
Yep.
So I came back. Ryan wanted nothing to do with me. I
Zero.
was living in the basement of our friend's house, and this went on for 6 months. I was there back in Kansas City, living in the basement. Ryan didn't want anything to do with me, and I would like leave him like treats and notes, and go to his prayer sets, and go to the church services that he was at, which was a different schedule than he was leading worship in the evenings at the time. And
I remember this is where
this is where you
You were
came
there
in.
for those.
and I was so confused.
What the heck's going on?
Because I didn't know anything was going on.
I don't think my team knew.
No, we didn't know. I didn't know.
Really?
I was like, are you guys married? Are you not married?
Oh, I have a funny story.
Oh, well, Yeah, anyways, go ahead.
I walked into somewhere and someone saw my name, like my last name, which is Kondo.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, are you Ryan's sister?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Nope,
Well,
I'm his wife."
And here's another interesting moment. So I think you had told me, you were like, yeah, I'm divorced or I'm separated or something. And then I saw Natasha and I saw you at a concert. It was a Postillos concert.
Yes, I remember that.
And I was like, hey, what are you doing here? Like, and I was, cause I think I've seen like one time in my life.
It was super awkward. I went by myself.
And you had said, like, obviously it's awkward. It's like, and you're at this point, I now know you're like, I'm fully committed. I'm coming back. And you're like, no, I'm done. Cause you were like, yeah, it's going great. Like we're together. And you're like, nope. And I remember walking away. I was like, what the heck is going on here? Like, are they together? Are they not together? I just didn't know. And I was like, and at that point I was like, I don't know what's going on. So Natasha and I are married, but we had just gotten done with.
Yeah, because when you all joined my team, she had just defeated cancer.
Yeah, so we're like, we were going through our own crap. I was like, I don't even know what's going on.
I can't handle it.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out our own lives right
Forget
now.
Ryan.
So anyway, yeah, this is when I come into the story, and I'm
That's
like,
hilarious.
so it was interesting. But
yeah, she just was everywhere I went, and I was annoyed by it.
Ubiquitous. Oh, I was even working at the coffee shop.
She got a job at my favorite coffee shop.
And I have to
so
tell
mad.
you though, Ryan would come in and he wanted nothing to do with me, and I was like, every time I saw him, and it was just this complete shift. The Lord like really shifted my heart. But I remember buttering his bagel, and I was like, I'm buttering his bagel.
And that's how it is still to this day. She just weeps as she butters my bagel in the morning.
I'm so lucky to butter this bagel.
I know.
That's not the case.
Joy of butter.
Even as the butter is on the countertop and not in the fridge, you're still like, So,
anyways. Yeah. So
how long is that process?
So that was, you came back in
6
September.
months. It was 6 months, yeah.
Which is a long time.
Wait, 6 months from then till what? What process are you talking about?
Well, so it's like, what's funny is like, you were like, I fought for like 6 to 8 months and she wanted nothing to do with me. And then finally you're like, I'm done. And then the tables turn.
It completely turned.
And now it's like, let's say it's 6 to 8 months for that's.
Oh, before we got restored.
Yeah. I mean, it's just.
From the time I came back to Kansas City to the time we started like dating again, it was 6 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I truly felt that, which I mean is one of the, and we can talk more about this, but one of the key takeaways is just the actual pursuit, the necessity of pursuing your spouse. It's not like you're courting, not you're dating, but that doesn't stop after marriage. And so I felt like there was a period of time that was necessary that Ryan was pursuing me. He had to fight for me.
Yeah.
And then
whether you wanted him or
whether
not.
I wanted it or not.
Yeah.
And then it was completely turned where he was shut down.
Yeah.
He had bereaved the marriage, grieved it, was in a state of bereavement. And I had to feel that same, like, I want to fight for my marriage. I want to contend for my marriage.
Yeah.
I want to see the story that God has for my marriage. Because I remember there was at one point, this is later on, there was one day I just woke up and God woke me up early and was speaking to me a lot that day. And I remember him saying to me so clearly, I'll restore your marriage, but it's not for you and it's not for Ryan. It's for my glory.
Wow.
And I just felt like anytime anybody ever asks me to share my story, it's a yes.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You know, what's funny is that I was thinking this when you were sharing your dream. It's that 100-fold obedience, because what you guys just experienced is you each had to give 100%, even when the other person didn't give anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, I actually remember, like, I remember this from my dad. So my father taught me marriage is, and he probably learned it from somewhere else. Marriage is never 50-50.
Right.
We think it's 50-50.
Yeah.
Hey, we're split. We're doing this together. Like equal share, you know, but marriage is 100-100.
Yeah.
Even if the other person gives 0,
Yep.
you're giving 100.
Yep.
You commit to 100 no matter what. It's never 50-50.
So good.
And when I've married people, that's like, I make sure I say that
Yeah.
every single time. Hey, it's not 50-50.
Yeah.
It's 100-100. And I think back when you were talking about your dream, it's like, hey, I want the 50. And it's like, but no, actually you need 100. And you guys both had that moment of like, it wasn't like, oh, hey, let's come together and we're going to equally say yes, 50-50. Let's do it. It's like, no, actually you experienced that where you had to commit in the face. And I liken it to Ephesians 6 when it's like, love your wife as Christ loved the church, even when, you know, the church wanted nothing to do with him, you know? And so, okay. So you kind of started to share, this is like 6 months.
6 months.
And then something shifted.
I will say during that time, I just cause I feel like this is important to say, it was such a, like, much like Ryan had that sweet season with the Lord, I also had that where it was just like hook, line, and sinker. I was encountering the Lord. And I remember there was this day where it was just my entire identity in one day felt like it had been restored. Like I remember him saying so clearly, you're not just Betty the ballerina. You're not just Ryan's wife, which was how people knew me within the community. You're Betty, my beloved. Yeah. And that really shifted everything because then it was like, oh, yes, I am Betty, his beloved. Yes. And just being able to walk forward in that.
And you can be Betty, his beloved, anywhere.
Yes.
In any way. Yeah. And that's I kept bringing that up, but that's like that identity thing is so strong.
So it is. It really is. So Ryan one day comes to me and he says, kind of nonchalantly, kind of like when you were like, yeah, we're dating.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking.
He was like, so I think it's time to start working on our marriage. And I
don't even know what shifted.
I was going to ask you what changed.
Well, so at the time I had gone to my pastor and I said, what do I do?
Same
She's
pastor?
come back. And the same pastor that answered about the dream. And she's like, or he said, you know, just keep your heart open for God. Yeah. And I had people getting mad at me, like, you just need to take her back and like, just trust her. And I'm like, no, I'm not there. And this pastor actually said, no, don't, just wait. You know, keep your heart open before God, and he's got your address. And
I remember you saying that to me. God's got my address.
And I said,
I can change my heart.
I said, I'm just going to keep my heart open. I'm going to keep singing. I'm going to keep worshiping. I'm going to keep doing my thing. And, you know, God, please change my heart. Yeah. Because it was just cold and shut down to her. And
so you asked him to change your heart.
Oh, yeah. 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 And she just kept showing up everywhere I was. and then, yeah, the Lord shifted my heart. It wasn't like hey, change my heart. It was like, my heart's here, Lord, but she's back, but I'm not ready. Yeah. And then there was a shift within about 6 months, and then we started dating, which was weird.
There is no instruction manual for how to date when you're married. No. Just saying that.
Yeah. Because we weren't living in the same place. Like, she was going to her basement apartment, and I was, you know. Yeah. Anyway, so we started dating again.
Because you guys aren't, like, even though you're married, you're not living together. Like, you know, are you guys intimate?
Well, that was the thing. We were like, are we allowed to do husband and wife?
No, exactly. That's so strange. It's like,
and we of course had a lot of like people mentoring us and helping disciple us, walk us through this.
And we weren't divorced.
Yeah. We weren't
the divorce hadn't gone through. I thought maybe it
had.
Yeah.
So you didn't do it right.
I sent the papers, but she had to go back before the court.
Well,
and what did you do?
My heart shifted. So I actually, I could have let it dissolve on its own after like a period of time. Yeah. But I really felt like I needed to go back. So I remember I took the papers. I went and stood in line at the courthouse. Yeah. And this was, I think at this point, Ryan didn't want anything to do with me.
Don't come back. That was that time.
And I had to go back and do the first show because they were counting on me for the ballet season, but then I didn't come back after that. But I still got to dance, which was like just so restorative for the
to this day.
Lord.
You're still
dancing.
I'm still
dancing.
You're teaching dance too,
directing.
And it's like, it's all.
So, anyways, but I took those papers and I stood in line and I went before the judge to get it officially dissolved. And I remember he took the papers and he read them. Had his little glasses.
Monocle.
I was going to say that, but most people won't understand. And he had this bald head, and I remember he looked up over his glasses and he said, "Are you sure about this?" And I was like, I've never been more sure about anything in my life. And he signed the papers and handed them to me and said, "Good luck." And I went home and burned them and probably had like a little dance party.
Yeah, totally.
Good luck.
Yeah.
He's like, I've
It
seen these
worked.
papers so many
I
times.
know.
Never seen someone reverse it.
Yeah, probably.
So she reversed
So-
it.
and
so
then-
we were still married technically.
Yeah. And then we were like, well, we were advised, hey, you should probably renew your vows.
Yeah.
When you're ready to.
Yeah.
So you
we
dated
went
for a
through-
while?
We dated,
Couple months.
a few months.
Yeah, 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously lots of counseling, lots
Yeah.
of marriage counseling, lots of discussions, we invited, a select
Yeah.
few people to speak into
Yeah.
our marriage and situation. So on our 5-year anniversary, June 6th, I put my wedding dress back on
Wow.
and we had a vow renewal ceremony.
Yep.
So sweet.
We did it
We did it. Yep.
You guys did it.
by nothing of our own.
Nothing of
5
our own.
years. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And,
Go ahead.
and I'm sorry, you said you've married 17 years?
We're coming up on 17
on
years
17.
married.
Yeah.
12
And
years
then
renewed.
12 years restored marriage.
So 12 years since that vow renewal.
Yeah.
How was it year one?
After the vow renewal?
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird. I thought it would just be really rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so
Okay.
intense, but it felt like the sweetest season. I really
really
feel like it was
was.
a miracle
Yeah.
because
It was a miracle.
I thought she's going to be, even though I know you came back 100-fold obedience to the Lord, and I was like, no.
Well, I mean, you haven't seen that yet. It's like,
Yeah. So I thought she's not going to want to,
Mhm.
like, she's going to be, I don't know, angry or resent me for giving up what she had. And it just was nothing. And on my end, I thought, I'm not going to be able to trust her with my heart again.
Mhm.
But it felt miraculous in the sense that I had, like, my trust was way high.
Mm.
And I didn't think it would be like that.
Mm.
I mean,
I
right?
remember people even saying to us, you guys are making this look too easy. Like this,
Yeah.
it should not be this easy.
It really went from like the valley to the mountaintop.
It
and
did.
Wow.
It did.
And I do think there was something about the renewing of the vow. There's something about, I think, me crying out and weeping. And I changed a lot of stuff. I got a job.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I came back and you had a job. It's like,
I was making a
it's about
salary.
time.
I was making a salary, and she's like,
about
"This is awesome." You're and I actually, when you came back, I remember I said, "You can work
Oh,
if you
yeah.
want to,
Yeah.
but you never have to work again.
Yeah.
I'll make it to where you don't have to." And you said, "Oh, I love you." And I know you love work.
I do.
And you,
I actually
you
enjoy
are
it,
passionate
yeah.
about it. So you are working, and
I am.
so. But I wanted to make sure she felt that I would provide for her.
Yeah.
I said, "I'll do whatever I have to do, whether
Yeah.
it's change careers, whatever,
Yeah.
to make sure."
So there were
I'm
big
providing
things
for
because
us.
it's like you started off this conversation where it was like, hey, there's a lot of things I wasn't doing. Like I
Yes.
wasn't leading my family. I was
Yes.
not this, blah, blah, blah. And then you, through that process and then your struggle with identity, it like, there's a lot that you did and a lot that the Lord restored. But then there's things that you're saying right now. It's like, also, I had to change a lot. I had
Right.
to like lead my family. I had
Right.
to do this. I
Yeah.
had to,
To own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take ownership.
I
of
took
all that,
ownership
yeah.
of
Yeah.
my leadership or how I didn't lead
Mhm.
and repent for things. I think we did that on the front
Oh,
end
yeah.
when you first got back,
Big time.
or when
Both of
we
us.
started dating again.
Mhm.
I made changes. I was providing. I was leading our family. I was being more intentional at home with that,
Mhm.
putting our marriage above
Yeah.
ministry, like
Yeah.
job ministry, vocational ministry. And so, yeah, that was a big shift. Right?
Yeah.
And so it did feel, that first year after, it felt like it was too easy. It felt,
Yeah. It was a
felt
new
miraculous.
marriage. It
Yeah.
was a new
felt
marriage.
like a new marriage.
Same
yeah.
person,
Yeah.
new marriage.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and now it's been 12 years. We've been through more storms
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
where I feel like maybe that would have taken us out
Yeah, true.
if
For
we
real.
hadn't
So
gone through
true,
this.
though.
For real.
And now here we are, 12 years restored, 17 years married, and it still feels like a new marriage. I still, we're still working out. We kind of, pretty good fight this year. Argument,
Actually, probably the biggest ever.
probably the biggest we've had.
Wow.
And we worked through it, and
Yeah.
we're committed to each other, and we're here for the long haul, and
Yeah.
we have honest conversations. We have check-ins every week,
Yeah.
and any things that I need to get better at, or we if she needs to improve, we talk about these
Yeah.
things. Hey, I feel like you're not understanding me here, or
Yeah.
you're not meeting this need. We have those conversations
So-
way earlier now than we used to.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
you're kind of touching on it a little bit, but I'd love to, if I'm thinking of people that are listening or watching right now who are in the middle of what you guys are now kind of out of. You're on the other side of it.
Yeah.
But they're in the like, look, I don't want to be married anymore. I feel trapped, hopeless, or, whatever that may be. Someone who's like, this is going to end. There's no hope.
Yeah.
What do you say to them? How do you, I mean, you had people come around you and, and walk with you.
Yeah.
Maybe some of that advice was good. Maybe some of it wasn't, but what would you say now that you guys have walked through this for years, stood the test of time? What would you say to them?
I'll say one thing, even preface what we're about to say. It's easy to go, oh, what did you do? Because we've had people ask us this. We're going through stuff. What did you do? And I always tell them, hey, I don't think we did things perfectly. and if you follow what we did, it could still not go the way it went for us. And so, because I have some friends that literally did the same thing that I did, and there's still another person making choices, and they made choices that weren't the same choices Betty made to be restored. And so they went for the 50% obedience, And so, and then there's other situations where the wife, left, or the other husband left, and they didn't even fight for it. They just gave up, And so and then that spouse wants to come back eventually, and then that person is not. So it's not just like, this is what you do, A, B, C, D, for this formula, follow this formula, and you'll make sure your marriage gets restored. So I'll just say that on the front end, because I don't want people to go, I'm going to do it. Oh, I did it like they said, and it's not working out. So I'm just prefacing with that.
I read the chapter of this book. It's not working.
I read that first chapter over and over again, like she said. But I will say this, if you, in the midst of all of, because in my mind, this is a big crisis. Like my biggest crisis in my life, besides my parents getting divorced, was this. And it's easy to run after other things. And this is probably more for me, just keeping my heart before the Lord and not losing my faith and my salvation and walking away from God altogether. But I just kept my heart before Him. And Psalm 11 was huge. I think we sang it all the time on our worship team. I was like doing Bible studies on that with you guys. You're like, why is Ryan so like no one talks about Psalm 11?
I will not flee like a bird.
It's like
we
did sing in hindsight.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah, we did sing that a lot.
In the Lord I take refuge. How can you say to my soul, flee like a bird to your mountain? Well, like the bird, fleeing like a bird to your mountain, or, running after things that bring comfort and safety that you might think are safety. So I could have numbed myself with drugs or alcohol or other relationships, or, even not sinful things like I just could have just went nuts on Netflix and, or gorged myself with food, which I wanted to, especially with Kansas City food.
Yeah. You were working out pretty hard.
I was actually pretty fit.
He was actually very fit.
And all this time. So I felt like I remember the Lord inviting me in and saying, just keep your heart before me. So I was trying to make God my refuge in that, and knowing that He was my shelter in the midst of the storm. And though the storm was happening, it didn't mean the storm wasn't happening, the crisis wasn't happening. I just kept running to Him instead of to those other things. And if I did, go over those things, I just came back quickly and repented, even if it wasn't sinful, because I just wanted to make God my refuge and not fill in the blank comfort. Because those things, while they would just dull me. They would have dulled me to even the pain. And I wanted to feel the pain. That sounds weird. No, but I wanted to feel the pain and be with God in the pain and experience it. So that's one thing I did on the front end, and I got that advice and I just went with it, and I kept singing. And the big thing is I kept singing like Psalms like that, Psalm 11, Psalm 63, songs about the cross. I remember the offense would creep in, and then I would sing about salvation and the cross and His body and His blood. We were singing Mercy.
Yeah, we sing all the time. A lot of cross songs.
You alone can rescue. Like so many songs about the cross, and I was stuck on it because I remember thinking, I can't be offended at you, God, if you did this. Even if I actually got to the place where I remember thinking, even if you do nothing else good for me in my life, like you're still good.
Yeah.
And I can't be offended at you.
Yeah.
Even if I never get married again, or I get married and it happens again. I can't be offended at you because I'm looking at what you did on the cross.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your body broken and your blood poured out. And so that saved me in a lot of ways from going after those other things and being offended in my heart. And it just kept me weeping before him, in prayer for our marriage. So I think that was helpful. That was on my end what would advise anyone. If you're going through a crisis, especially with marriage, keep going to the Lord, making him your refuge, and make that the thesis or your statement. Like, the Lord is my refuge. The Lord is my refuge. And just keep saying that and keep running to him. And that doesn't mean you're spending like hours before him, but you're not going after other things.
You're choosing to run towards him.
Yeah. Because those other things, everyone was telling me to do. Like, come have a drink, come. Like, and it's tempting to go and just like let loose and, but who knows what would have happened if I had done those things. I'm thankful I didn't do those things. So that was huge for me. And then do you have any things that you would?
I mean, I would say similarly, don't isolate. I mean, just setting your eyes on the Lord and the truth of who he is and what he's done. It's easy to want to withdraw and isolate yourself. And then further, just the power of influence, like who you are selectively choosing to be around you.
Who's sitting in that council seat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who's giving you counsel.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, I'm a numbers person. So I remember at one point looking up like, okay, statistically, what is the chance that our marriage could survive? And I remember I actually...
Probably pretty low.
I mean... No, I found this... I remember reading this, and it said 2/3 of marriages, 2/3 that stick it out over the course of 5 years are happier than they ever were before. And so that was a huge, aside from Jesus, that was like my hope during that time.
Like, okay, we can do this.
Yes. If we can really stick it out, statistically, we're going to be happier, if nothing else.
Yeah. And at the time, we didn't have kids.
We didn't have kids.
So in some ways, when people were giving me that counsel, it made sense. Like, you don't have kids, nothing,
Yeah, no attachments.
Exactly.
It's not like you have to be around this guy the rest of your life.
Most it's like, we have to stick it out because we have kids.
Yeah.
So we stuck it out. And it was so I think what you said, counsel, like who's in that counseling seat for you, it was that voice. I think keeping your heart before Jesus, running to him. And I think just wanting to be obedient. I think having that heart of like, I want to be obedient to God. And because in some ways I feel like there was a delusional cloud over you.
Yeah.
And I definitely I feel like that lifted.
It did.
And I remember you saying that, like it was a moment where it was just like, oh, everything's clear.
Yeah. I remember it felt like there was like this, almost like a canopy over my head. And it was like somebody just pulled it off. And it was like, whoa.
And I was praying specific prayers. And I feel like almost every single specific prayer was answered. Yeah. Give her a dream, Lord. Yeah. Give her the fear of the Lord. Yeah. I remember praying, lift that cloud of delusion. Just specific prayers, and God answered those prayers. And so, I mean, I feel like prevailing prayer is continuing to cry out. And some of I'd say when I was praying, I was thinking about it while I was crying. Like, it doesn't mean you're actually saying things perfectly. Right. Yeah. It just means, I mean, I was cussing at the Lord, I was,
which he's not offended by.
I was having King David moments where he was just screaming at God. And I think just keeping that's when I say keep your heart open, it means just going to him and crying out and keep praying and keep trying. And that's what, I mean, again, you could do those things and it might not end the same way. Like I said, I have friends that did the exact same thing I did and maybe even did it better than me. And the spouse didn't make the same choices that he made. And so you just gotta, and I want to say this too, because in my mind, I kept, the other thing is like what God's joined together, let no one separate. But at the same time, I know there's some situations where there's abuse or when you have to get out and abandonment, all those things like biblically or whatever. And I think there's still redemption for that person that has to leave because of those things. And I think some people feel condemnation. I can't be, you know what I mean? All those things that I can never taint it or I'll never be. It's like God can still redeem those things. I've seen so many marriages, even after the fact of even some of those people I've been talking about that did the same thing I did. They now have a thriving marriage and with a new spouse. And so I want to give that disclaimer too, because this was our ideal. And this is what I think God's heart is, what God has joined together, no one separate. Yeah. But at the same time, there was,
yeah.
Yeah. And there's, anyways, I don't want to get the theological, open doors for divorce, but I feel like there is that reality that some people feel condemned if they've been divorced before, or like, oh, how can I make this you know, right or have redemption?
Yeah.
And God redeems everything. He takes beauty, he takes ashes and makes them beautiful. Yeah. And I feel like that's been the testimony of our marriage, with our kid. Now we have Pearl and Ryder, and now we just adopted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like
that
was my closing thought is like, all of this happened without kids. And think about what would have happened if you guys decided to say no. Yeah. You guys chose to say yes. Yeah. And now you have 3 beautiful kids, you know, and what would have happened to Pearl's story, Ryder's story. Yep. And then what is your adopted son's name? Jonah, because it was something different. Yeah. That's the only.
In his mind, his name's Baby J.
Baby J.
That literally, I was gonna say Baby J, and I'm like, that's not his name.
If you ask him, he'll say.
If you ask him his name, he says Baby J.
Baby J. Yeah. And so Jonah, and so like they have a story.
Yeah.
Like they have a life now and a future because of this. Yeah. And so it's like we could talk about the glory of God in your marriage, but it's like it's also the glory of God in your children's lives now because of this. And it's beautiful. So thank you guys so much for being vulnerable, sharing your story. And I'm just so excited to see what these next 12, 15, 17 years look like, you know, and for your kids and what the story they have, the parents they now have, the role models they do now have because of this. And so thank you so much. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. I'll let you guys continue to make eyes with each other. So thank you. Thanks for joining us in this conversation. Make sure you subscribe and join us on the next episode of the Rating Podcast.